Thank you all for joining us again for Currents Shorts program number 3, Letters from Home. We're very happy to have all of the filmmakers with us now for a conversation. I wanted to begin with a couple questions for the whole group. I think there are a lot of nice ways in which the films kind of speak to each other and share some themes and interests. So to begin, I just wondered if you could each kind of speak to your approach to kind of personal, intimate filmmaking, and also the way you think about portraiture. I think all of the films in various ways are portraits of people close to you, of yourselves, of family. So yeah, happy for anyone to start, and we'll pause quickly for Nicolas.
Alors, est-ce que vous pourriez nous dire comment vous approchez le fait de faire un film très personnel, intime? Je pense que tous les films du programme, quelque part, traitent de la question du portrait, soit un portrait de gens qui vous soient très proches, de vous-même.
Can I start by saying
go ahead.
That the title of the program is an ode to Shanta Ackerman? Am I wrong? Letters.
Well, in a way, I think her film's called News from Home, and funnily enough, we had used that title in a previous year, and so, but we were like, oh, it's so fitting for this program as well. So I don't know, we thought about correspondence and how that is letter in some ways, and I don't know, we felt like they were all in some way kind of like diary entry, personal kind of note or letter to the audience about kind of a private space. So we thought that could work.
Okay, well, I can start.
Sure.
Well, the film wasn't really like a portrait per se, but looking at it again, I guess there is like elements of that, but the starting point was when I got this commission to make a work reflecting on the UK Black film workshops from the 80s, which included, Isaac Julian and John Comfort. They all came from that movement, but I knew that I wanted to incorporate the Royal Academy where I study, and also Claudette Johnson, who's a painter. She's one of my favorite artists, and that just shows at the time she had a show at Modern Art Oxford, and they were showing her very famous trilogy piece. So I knew that was basically my starting point, and she said that she started painting because she wanted to show people that looked like her. So, and I think also that's the essence of the Black Film Workshop. These filmmakers were essentially making works because they felt like they were not in the image, so they started making work to reflect their surroundings. And I feel like that's in essence with what I do essentially. So yeah, the film was essentially looking back at the past, but having like this new, I guess this optimism for what's to happen next, what's to come next.
I think for us it was like a very spontaneous project. I don't know, we were not planning to make a film. I think it was more like something that it was really like out of the blue. So Carla wrote me, we didn't know each other, and Carla sent me an email last year, at the end of last year, and he asked me, I was asked for this TV station to make a correspondence with someone, and I would like to make it with you. Like, I think we had the feeling that our films has things in common, and so it was, I can say that it was an invitation of Carla, I didn't know what it's gonna be. I thought it's gonna be something very private, and actually the plan was to screen the letters just one time in TV in Spain. And now I'm happy this is getting like more open, but it's strange at the same time because it started to be just a correspondence between the two of us, and I think it was a way of, I don't know, it was a very simple project, no, like a way of knowing each other and trying to talk from where we were, and in my case it was a very special moment because now we are in confinement, but I've been in confinement since October last year because in Chile was the social uprising. So for me it was just trying to make an object or like a letter for her in that conditions, working with the materials that I have in my hands, with my materials in front of me, with my memories, with my family, and that's it. And I think it was very nice to just be open of her invitation, and I think my letter is just replying of her questions, and I hope opening other questions as well.
Yes, it's for me it was a very beautiful and free project, to put it somehow, because it was an invitation from this the Catalan TV, and they were asking 6 women to have this kind of letter exchange or filmic letter exchange, and I was like the filmmaker who was invited to this program, and then I called Dominga. We had just met once, I think, and I just had the feeling that because our cinema has some things in common, we could find something interesting, and the assignment, put it somehow, it was to talk about women. And when Dominga and I talked, said, well, maybe we should just talk about the women in our family. But then it started kind of starting from this point, it transformed to something else. And Dominga had this social situation in Chile, and it kind of grew to somewhere else. But the starting point was to talk about the women in our families. And I think that going back to the question that you made, to me, I wouldn't be able to make films without loving whoever I'm portraying. Even if it's not my family, whoever it is, I have to feel this love, and I have this love for the people who are close to me. So to me, it's very natural that wherever I portray or wherever story I tell, it's really close to me because I have to matter and care about it, and also about the people that I portray. So somehow to me, it was just a super free project to take my camera and do it alone as well, because sometimes when you prepare films, you need like a lot of team and people and money, and this was just me and my family and something that I was doing to talk to Dominga, and then suddenly it talked to more people somehow. But to me, it's just like the starting point for anything. It should be that. At least that's how I see filmmaking.
Well,
ask something, Aily?
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask, how did you do the editing together?
No, so it was really spontaneous. Carla edited her own letter, and then I edited myself, and then so it's just 4 separate letters, and we put all them together. And for me, I don't know, what I like is that it was really like handmade. Like I edited in eMovie, and then I made the voice with my phone, because it was really like a strange time for me. So for Carla, it was more like going to shoot some things, but I was just working where I'm at now and trying to, it was really like precarious in a way, and I really like to approach this project in that way. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was going to say, because something that Dominga and Carla were saying about how it started in a more organic way, it kind of reminds me of my process. And for me, it's kind of a long answer, but I shot this film already in 2017, but I just edit it now. And so it has that time in between that is part of the film. But when I was shooting it, I was living in this new city in upstate New York, in this very kind of post-industrial part of the state. So it was very foreign to me. And my films always have to do with cities. Like I'm very interested in that as portrait, but I had never really, you know, none of my images have ever been about the private or turning the camera towards like autobiography or my life. But what happened is that I was kind of collecting images in this place in a way to, you know, to understand this new place. And then I started thinking of using film or the camera as an extension of just like everyday practice. And that was really something that started to motivate me, like an act of making a shot a day or filming, you know, daily things that are very simple. So things kind of have the same weight. So, you know, I can go out into this new urban space and film somebody waiting for the bus, but then I can film this plant in my house and the way that the images are made. And it's kind of really thinking about how space holds information. But then what happened is, as I was doing these collections, I wasn't really thinking of it being a film or what it was going to be. I was just thinking of the act of making the image. But with time, I ended up documenting this specific moment in my life where it was the end of a relationship, and that's kind of what the film is about. But it's really interesting to see something in the present with that kind of sort of distance as to what was happening then. So yes, and then in that sense, the film is kind of like a premonition of this absence that was happening at the time of filming, but I wasn't aware of that. Yeah.
I guess I could go. For me, the film Malembe was a questioning of what the meaning of home was to me. It has two parts, really. I mean, the first one is back in my home country, Venezuela, and it's very observational, ethnographical, even you can say. And then there is a switch, and it is filmed here in this house, and then the people that you see is my family, my cousins in Venezuela, and the people that you see in here is my wife, and my daughter, and myself too. And there is like a translation that happens, you know, but both are my home, and this is my house, and then but my home is where I come from, Venezuela. So it's like this upside down world, bizarre parallel universe in which it is where I live, really, in this limbo. And when I was filming, my camera broke down, and I didn't have enough money to go back. So that was back in Venezuela. So when I came here, I didn't know what to do. So I started filming around the house. And then when I was filming around the house, there was the beginning of the rising in Venezuela. And all the contacts that we have from the family is through WhatsApp. And then we have a WhatsApp account for the whole family. And then what I was getting in is like things from my cousins going to protest and them filming things that were outrageous. And for me, it was a moment to connect what was happening in there at the time. And also to show what my life was in here to them. So yeah, that's kind of the theme of the film.
And can you tell us a bit about Malembe? What does that mean in relation to?
Yeah, well, so Malembe is two things. Like Malembe is the name of the song at the end, and which is played by my uncle. Like he used to be in a band, and then he used to play there when he was really little. So it is an LP record that I have in the house, and it's like that's my favorite song from that record. And it's actually Yoruba, and it means slow down or take it easy. But then it's also kind of what you said when you want to keep tempo when you're playing drums. You say malembe, malembe, like a kind of the tone down, but it's that kind of metronome. So yeah, it's kind of like a keeping tempo, keeping your pulse, and follow the rhythm.
Mathilde?
So I speak French to say more, and I'm sorry for that, really. J'avais prévu d'ailleurs de venir à New York longtemps cette année et j'ai pas pu. Juste, non, je voulais dire que j'étais contente que le programme porte ce titre, parce que pour le film que j'ai fait, le travail de Chantal Akerman était assez présent pour moi. Bon, c'est mon premier film et ça a commencé de façon assez simple par des choses de la vie. Au printemps 2018, en France, il y a eu beaucoup d'événements politiques, bon, pas que en France d'ailleurs à cette époque. Et j'ai rencontré à ce moment-là des gens plus jeunes que moi et qui se posaient beaucoup de questions sur leur vie amoureuse, sur la vie politique. Et j'avais jamais vu dans le temps de mon existence autant de vivacité, de parole chez des gens qui avaient aussi une pratique politique. Et moi, j'avais envie depuis longtemps de faire une enquête sur la vie et la sexualité. Je trouve que je suis une psychanalyste par ailleurs, enfin en tout cas c'est un premier métier, et que c'est une question qui me revenait aussi par le cinéma. Et donc ça a commencé de façon très simple d'aller filmer une amie, Martha, qui est le premier personnage, chez elle le dimanche. Et on a construit comme ça ensemble, c'est-à-dire que le texte, travail d'écriture, parce que tout est écrit, ça s'est fait avec elle, puis avec Charlotte, le deuxième personnage, et avec Luc aussi, le troisième ami. On a écrit la parole ensemble. Moi, ça m'intéressait beaucoup de filmer la parole depuis les appartements. Voilà, l'idée, c'était que je viens chez toi et tu me parles de comment tu fais avec la vie et avec la...
Mathilde, do you want to pause for a sec for translation?
Okay.
Yeah, so, and actually, at one point, my internet dropped out. I don't know why. So I was interrupted when you said, quand tu as dit, Mathilde, que j'écrivais avec Charlotte.
Oui.
Donc, on reprendra à partir de là, mais je vais traduire jusqu'ici. So I had actually planned to come to New York for a long time this year, but I couldn't. I was particularly happy that this program has the title that it has, because in fact, my film had quite a strong presence of Chantal Akerman's work when I was making it. It's my first film, and it started off with something quite simple, which were simple things of everyday life. In the spring of 2018 in France, there were a lot of political events. In fact, not only in France, but in France, I met at that time a lot of younger people who were asking themselves questions about their love lives and political questions that I had never in my life seen expressed with such vibrancy and such strong words by people who have a political practice. It so happens that I had long wanted to investigate sexuality and politics outside of cinema. I'm a psychoanalyst. And so the film started off with the process of me going to visit my friend Marta on Sundays, and we built it together because it's a film that's written. So we wrote it together, first with Marta, then with Charlotte, et c'est là où j'ai arrêté pendant un instant.
Avec Charlotte et avec le troisième personnage aussi, Luc, on a, à partir d'entretiens ou temps très simples de paroles ensemble, écrit des sortes de monologues mis en scène, et ça s'est juste construit comme ça, comme une mise en scène très précaire de nos rencontres. peut-être je dois dire aussi que vraiment dans ce paysage-là d'amitié, le cinéma et la vie politique donc étaient très liés et qu'il s'agissait de fabriquer quelque chose ensemble. Je pense que ça a à voir avec ce dont on parle sur les correspondances, c'est-à-dire c'est pas des lettres, mais c'est un moment où on a besoin de mettre en commun des paroles, des récits. C'est vrai que de ce point de vue-là, le cinéma je sais pas si c'est propre au cinéma français, mais un cinéma où on parle beaucoup, ça m'intéressait qu'on parle beaucoup, parce que dans la vie, on parle beaucoup. Et voilà, c'est ça qui m'intéressait le plus. Et c'est vrai que si moi j'ai tenu le film jusqu'au bout seul, ça a été vraiment une fabrication collective.
So, and it was also written with the third character, the person who plays the third character, Luc. And so these were basically interviews, very simple moments of talking together from which we wrote monologues and created a very simple, stripped down mise en scène of our encounters. I think it's also important for me to say that within this landscape of friendship, politics and cinema are closely linked. This is something that we really built together. And maybe this relates to what has been said so far about correspondence. These aren't letters that we made, but it was important to share words, to share narrative. This may not be specific to French cinema, but French cinema is a cinema where people talk a lot, and that's something that interested me, because in life, we talk a lot, and that's what interests me in life. And though this is a film that I carried alone from start to finish, it's also important to say that it was a collective work.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I think that's a really great segue to my second question that I had for all of you. And I think many of you have kind of already touched on this a bit, but was kind of the relationship of the politics to the private life. I think Alexandra, in one of your synopses of the film, you mentioned the politics of the private and the public. And Mathilde, in an interview you did for Feed Marseille, I think you had also mentioned the political activity within their private lives. And I think, you know, we see in Dominga's part of her letter, and also in Lewis's, like the ways in which protest and the things that are happening kind of externally come into the private space, vice versa. I think Ayo, also in your work, we're seeing it expressed through what one's reading, what one's, you know, choosing to give space to, give a platform to. So I just wondered if you could speak to the way in which you're each thinking about that in your own practices.
Shall I translate?
Yes.
Sure. Yes.
Alors, j'aimerais que vous nous parliez, et beaucoup d'entre vous ont déjà commencé à le faire, du rapport dans vos films de la politique à la vie privée. Alexandra, dans le synopsis de votre film, vous parliez de la politique du public et du privé. Mathilde, dans un entretien que vous avez donné au feed, vous parliez de l'activité politique à l'intérieur de la vie privée. On voit aussi dans les films de Dominga et de Luis des démonstrations, des manifs et des choses externes qui viennent et rentrent dans la sphère privée. Ayo, on le voit aussi d'une certaine manière, c'est exprimé dans votre film parce que choisissent de lire les gens, de l'espace qu'ils choisissent de donner à certaines choses. Et donc, tout simplement, cette deuxième question est de savoir comment vous avez pensé ce rapport politique et privé.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I can start. I grew up in a kind of a boring generation after dictatorship, like the coming back of democracy. So I've been always asking myself, what is the politic in my film, no? Where is the politics? And I think in my fictions always I've been focused in what is in between, in not really like in a like almost like taking away the politic of my film, seeing like, I don't know, family observation and daily life observation as something political as well. But last year I find myself in another kind of moment where for the first time life in Chile or what I was living through was bigger than my work, and it was a very hard time for me. I questioned why to do films, why to, I don't know, what to do. I really questioned my work, and then I had in the middle this invitation of Carla. So I think it was kind of a tough process, and I don't think I was thinking in making something political. I think I was just reacting. It was a time where I didn't have time to think. I was just like writing a letter, like putting things together, and then appears how history is so like a cycle. And I was observing my mother trying to get out of dictatorship like so many years ago, and now we were like living through the same. So I'm being very dispersed, but this was the kind of process that I was living through doing the project as well. I think it was something very unarticulate. It was something very like physical that happened to me, and it was just a reaction, and the reaction was put together how all these kind of family memories and what I was living through. Yeah, maybe I will think more about that.
I was just
Carla, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna add to that I was really shocked with when I received the last letter from Dominga, because we were talking about our families and questioning, you know, if you can be a filmmaker and have children and all these really intimate things. And then suddenly she was in the middle of that, and then suddenly you question yourself. It's like, do I want to have children? Do I want to bring them in this world? You know, so you just it goes together. So you can talk about your family and be in your like very intimate life, but you cannot not look at the world somehow, and because it affects us all, you know. So for me, it's like the shape that the letters took just by themselves, like by the moment that we both were living. To me, it led to this reflection that at any point when we started that, we thought that we would end up there, to put it somehow.
Yeah, we start from something very personal until there was like a breaking point where talking about personal is not like, it doesn't have the weight anymore. And yeah.
It looks so small, it makes you feel so small.
Uta, I wanted to just quickly jump back to Uta, because I think you had asked a question to Carla and Dominga, but I think if you wanted to touch on the aspect of portraiture or to this question.
The question about politics and filmmaking? I don't know. I can only jump back to the question before. So maybe sure. This short film is about, I don't know if you are familiar with the filmmaker Margaret Tate. She's a Scottish filmmaker who was very important for me. She died in 1999, and I visited her in the Orkney Islands in 95. So I filmed at this visit, and maybe the model, you know, when I was thinking of private or not. So for me, it's not a distinction. So I'm always filming. Sometimes I don't know. I never work with a script, so it's pretty natural not to divide between this is a personal or private work or going into public. So yeah, and Margaret, she was maybe I have to say a little bit about. Mostly here we are a lot of female filmmakers, so also that means how do we work? How is our career or life different from the males? And as you can imagine, in the time she was working, it was even more difficult. So it was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and yeah, so she did 30 short films in her career, and mostly all funded by herself. And when she was 73 years old, she made her first feature film, and this was produced by the BFI. And so this, yeah. So and when I visited her, she had contributed to I think Channel 4. I don't know to which TV station. She called it video poems from the 90s. And but actually she was not, at that point she was busy with writing script and dreaming of her next big feature film. But because I came with my Bolex camera and she showed me this video poem, so at one point she asked me if we want to go out and film together. So we did it, and we did some of the titles, which you see also in the film. But the film never, in a way it was a collaboration, but in a way it was still her film. So it never came to a real collective work, but I had these rushes and the footage. So the film came out now because there was a commission for Margaret Tate 100. Sarah Neely, she's a film scholar in Glasgow, and she is very deep in preserving Margaret's work. She asked 10 filmmakers to commissioned a film in the spirit of Margaret. So that was the reason why I went back to the rushes and looked at what we had filmed then, and thought if I can do anything out of this material. And because these are really only glimpses, I was also looking through my later filmed abstract colors. So this was an idea of mine. I filmed without a lens. So if you film without a lens, everything is very blurry and just colors, abstract colors. So I put this in between, and yeah, but it's a small little reference or memory piece, but it shows basically the spirit or what I'm interested in my filmmaking.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you who don't know, Uta's spent a lot of many years programming films by women, especially experimental filmmakers, poets, artists making films whose work is not well known, and she's toured with these films. And so I think it does in a great way fit into this work you've done, and like nicely a portrait of a filmmaker who's been very important to you, because she was one of the people who's part of the programming work.
Yeah, so yeah, I discovered her through a friend, actually. She said, I think you would be interested in her work. And then I went to London in 93 for a yoga session. But I visited the co-op at that point. It was a filmmakers co-op, and looked at the films they had in distribution of hers. So then I decided I want to bring her to Berlin, and I organized so then I get in contact with her, but in Lux or in the co-op were only special titles. So there was a lot, I knew that there's a lot in her place up in the Orkney Islands. So then after the retrospective I visited her and to look at other films which were not in the distribution. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think there's this beautiful way in which I think, Ayo, it ties to your work, where, you know, you kind of use your own work as a way to point to someone's work which, you know, inspires you. I think also maybe in a way that Carla brought Dominga into this project. You know, I think there's really nice ways in which people are speaking to filmmakers who are important to them and who they want people to know more about. So yeah, Ayo, should we jump to you?
I feel like I should be brief because there's so many of us, but Portrait of Ga by Margaret Tate is one of my favorite shorts, and I actually have like a image of her and her partner, black and white photo of her like setting up her Bolex. I'll send
What is it called? Portrait of
Ga. It's about her mum. It's really good. The sound design is amazing. But essentially, like, I feel like artists were very selfish people, and well, the environment that I'm in. And so I wanted to kind of be nosy and ask these very competitive artists, who are your influences? Because, you know, when you ask an artist like who inspires you, people don't want to say who they that's just like quite a taboo thing. So the idea was also, I'm in the film, and I remember I was nominated for an award and I didn't get it. And someone said that my time will come, like you're still at school, like wait until you graduate and then you'll deserve that award. And I felt like that was very hurtful, because it's like, I don't know, like if I deserve an award, then I deserve an award, doesn't matter wherever I am. So that's why the film starts with I'm a loser at the start, because it was something, I was just tapping into that. And then but I think in many ways, all of us, all our films are an ode to someone, or we're representing like a feeling or something. But yeah. And also, I was going to say that the title is like a Romain like reference, because I love his work, so I was trying to make it sound quite French.
Well, I can speak, but it's also, I guess, dispersed. It's so interesting to hear everybody's take on this question. I think for me, just like Ute, I don't work with a script, and I don't know what's going to happen or what I'm doing. But if I remember at the beginning, the motivation for this film was kind of that question that Dominga said earlier, where you question why make films, or why do I keep doing this, and what is political, what is important. And I had just finished a very long project, a feature film that took like 5 years of my life. And I was very tired of that way of working. So I feel like, the main motivation for this film began with trying to find the joy and the pleasure of filming. And that may be like a very small thing, it's not like a big idea, but it's this motivation that kind of is the energy that drives anything. Like, where does that motivation come from? And that motivation for me was just using 16mm film again, being behind the camera, and just really looking at whatever I want was in front of me and what I wanted to look at, without this hierarchy of the image of what it was going to be, or kind of liberating the image from where it's going to end up. And for me, that is political, as we were saying before, that decision, the gesture of filming, what you decide to film, how you film, is a political act in itself. So that's one part. And then the other part is after having this footage and seeing it almost like a puzzle, because that's how I feel editing is. For me, it's always like a puzzle that has these different pieces, and you figure out how to put them together. It was interesting to see kind of this progression of the public talking about the private. So they both kind of articulate each other, like the way that you're filming the private sphere really talks about the outside, and vice versa. And that was new, and that's always interesting too, to figure out new languages or structures to talk about maybe similar ideas, because I feel like maybe it's just me, but it's probably a lot of people. I think that artists, we're always doing the same thing. We're just finding like different ways to do it. So, yeah.
I think for my work, for the most part, I had the idea of being political is something that happened to me. I always get into trouble. I'm an observational for most part, so I just walk out of the house and I start filming. And then I captivated by the spaces that are usually abandoned, or when the suburban meets the urban. And those spaces are freak spaces in which many things happen. But then also they're vigilant, and then live in the United States, and then I'm the color that I am, and I have a camera, and I have a boom, and I have all these things. So I just very suspicious all the time. So I always try to just take the things out of my movies. And it was something that it came in it little by little subconsciously, but now it has become this tap line, and then it's almost erupting. It's becoming like a volcano. I think I cannot be anything but political, because that margin, it is no longer a margin. It is just intersecting me and going through me. And I feel that has been a turn that is happening right now. And words like resistance or rising and possibly and hopefully salvation, those are the things that I'm constantly thinking. And trying to imagine it, how we'll look that in images, how we'll look that through sound. And it's personal, and it is an eye, but then I feel that it got an eye that I want to turn into an us, and somehow reflective or something.
Peut-être je peux continuer. Donc je continue en français. I'm sorry. Juste, je pense pas, moi non plus, qu'un film peut être volontairement politique. Enfin, j'ai pas voulu forcément faire ça moi. Seulement, je pense que, et c'est ce que j'ai vu dans les autres films aussi, quand on filme la vie privée, il y a quelque chose de politique parce qu'on a un regard sur comment on vit et comment on apprend à vivre. Et moi, ce qui m'a intéressé dans les amis, les personnes que j'ai filmées, c'est que le film, à ce moment-là, il permet de s'interroger simplement sur comment on vit. Et que ça, disons que c'était... en fait, ce point-là est un point de solitude, et qu'il était vraiment important pour moi de montrer en contre-champ, comme ça, d'une vie politique très collective, comment chacun vit depuis la solitude. Et donc, ça rejoint peut-être à ce moment-là quelque chose qui devient un portrait, si on veut. Bon, enfin, voilà. Après, il y a quelque chose de politique dans la fabrication quand il y a des choses qui se font vraiment à plusieurs, mais avoir une intention politique, je ne sais pas, effectivement, on ne peut pas le savoir à l'avance, ce que ça va produire, ça. I don't know, Nicolas.
So I'll continue in French, I'm sorry. I also don't think that a film can't voluntarily be political. In any case, that's not something that I set out to do. And I think that's something that I also saw in the other films in the program. The thing is that when you film private life, it's political because it's a gaze that shows you how we live. And that was my interest in filming my friends and these people, is that films allow us to ask, how do we live? And that point is a point of solitude, of loneliness. And perhaps the reverse of that is political collective life that allows us to ask to people, how do you live your loneliness? How do you live that? Maybe that's something that comes close to portraiture. I think there's something that's political in making something as a group collectively, but in any case, political intention in making a film is something that I don't think we can really know.
Thank you so much. I think that is all we have time for. I have so many more questions for all of you, and I wish we could keep talking, but yeah, I really enjoyed all of your films, and it was wonderful to have you all kind of in this group together today to discuss them, and yeah, wish we had been able to have everyone in New York and here in person for this program, but hopefully sometime soon. We can all meet in person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aily.
Thanks, everybody.
Good luck.
Take care.